welcome back to Rise and Recover, the podcast where I'll share my journey through addiction, recovery and personal growth. If you're new here, I'm SamLuke, and this is where I'll get real about my past struggles and the lessons I've learned along the way. This podcast is about real stories, my own, and eventually I'll be bringing others on to share their story too. Firstly though, I want to apologise in the delay in releasing this episode, but I've been in a bit of a crossroads with my recovery lately and the path to take, shall I say, because I thought maybe I should just release a book so my story's all in one place. But I've got a few people that are really eager to come onto this podcast, share their story, and I think that's really important because I've got people like the younger generation, I've got people under the age of 18 who want to come on here and share their problems with ketamine. And in the world that we live in today, where ketamine's taken over so many young lives, it's killing young children, it's killing so many people, it's damaging their bladders, and it's everywhere. I really want to get these people on to share what it's done for them, to try and give others hope as well. I've also got people who haven't got addictive pasts, but they've had a drunken night out, they've done something stupid and they've spent many years behind bars. And that's why I say so often that alcohol can change your life in the flick of a switch. Literally, it can change your life so fastly, and that's why I hate this stuff. It's horrible, and I want to get these other people on to show that. But what I'm going to do about I'm going to put my story in a book, probably the beginning of next year, maybe the middle of next year, release a book so my story's all in one place. But as the episodes progress, like I said, I'll be bringing on these guests to share their life struggles, whether it's addiction, crime, mental health, or just life in general. And I think podcasts are really important and a good way of doing that in the world that we live in today, because so many people listen to them. So, I'm going to definitely keep up with this Rise and Recover podcast thing. But yeah, again, I apologise in the delay in this episode. So I'm going to give you a quick recap of episode 1. In the first episode, I shared why I decided to start Rise and Recover and what made me put my story out there publicly all over social media. This wasn't about attention. It came from being told in treatment that I had a way of connecting with people in groups. I got told I had good emotional intelligence and stuff, and somebody said to me, "You should make a book, mate." And I thought about it, and yeah, I enjoy doing this stuff, so that's why I carried on with it. I've struggled with alcohol and drugs and crime since about the age of 12 years old, and my goal is to show people it's okay to use our voice. We do not need to be ashamed of our past. It is so important that we don't do that. I wanted to use my own life struggles to try and inspire others to change. I tried quitting alcohol many times, but every time I had a struggle and I would relapse. But therapy taught me that it's not just about removing the substance out of our body. It's about digging up the reasons why we drink, why we hurt ourselves, and addressing the patterns that we've built throughout our lives to keep going back to the drug or keep going back to the alcohol. I'm not ashamed of my past anymore. Like, I now learn from it and I try sharing it, and this is why it's so important. I realise that all the things that I did in my past, that I drank on those problems, and that's why I try and say to people, you need to dig up your past. It is so important. And I'm not saying that everyone has to go out there and share their life publicly all over social media like I do, but just speak to a friend, speak to your family member, or go and get a counsellor and speak to somebody about it. It's really important that you can just dig up your past. And maybe if I'm being open, if I'm showing people that it's okay, that I can use my past struggles as an inspiration, then maybe that'll boost them to do the same thing, that'll give them the courage to use their own voice. So I'm going to take it back a little bit further now. Like, my early years growing up wasn't easy, but as I mentioned in the last episode, when you live through a rough childhood, or if you live through a tough time growing up, you don't really think nothing of it because that's all you know, sort of thing, if you know what I mean. So it's like when I said my life story in treatment, somebody come up to me and was like, "Wow, man, you've had it tough." But then other people in treatment had it worse than me. There's always somebody who has a worse time than you, and that is so, like, we have to remember that, like, everybody, no matter how bad your life is, somebody out there is living a worse time than you, and that's really important. But when somebody said to me that they found my life pretty tough, I was like, yeah, okay, then maybe it was quite tough. But the funny thing is, I never thought about it. I never really thought about my childhood. I never really thought about my teens or nothing. I just lived life day by day and carried on doing what I did. But the funny thing was, so I've been going to alcohol and drug services for a long time, since I was young, and I had the same key worker for so long. And I remember sometime last year, well, yeah, it was last year, sometime last year, I went in, it might have been the year before, but I went into my local alcohol team, Cranston it was, in Worcester, and basically I had a new worker, and she come up to me and she was like, "Oh yeah, Sam, you don't remember me, do you?" And I was like, "Nah, why?" She was like, "I'm Annie." She goes, "I was the police officer that used to deal with your case, and when you got took into care, when you got took off your mum and put into care," she goes, "I was the police officer who was present, and I witnessed a lot of your childhood trauma." She goes, "I need to tell you something. You're struggling with trauma." And I was like, "Nah, no way, man." I said, I'm not bothered about my past." I said, "My past is my past. I ain't worried about it. I've always been taught that you shouldn't worry about your past." And she was like, "Nah, you need trauma therapy." And then since then, I went into treatment and I started working on my past. And I realised, because you do little tasks and you start working on different things and you work on your childhood. And I was like, you know what? Everything I've been hiding, I've been locking everything in for so many years. And whenever anything bad happens, I will just pick up a drink or I will just pick up a drug. And it's pretty mental that I bumped into her, who was literally the worker who was there when I went into care, so it was quite mad, to be honest with you. So yeah, but anyway, I'm going to swing it back to my earliest memories and stuff. So I grew up on a council estate. We lived on I remember all my early memories of being pretty good, to be honest with you. Like I said, grew up on a council estate, quiet little road, do all the normal things what 90s kids did, tracking, 1-2-3 home, all that sort of stuff. Kirby, we'd stay out till it was late, putting cans in our back wheels of our BMXs, making them sound like motorbikes, doing all that sort of stuff, And I was actually at my sister's the other week, and we was looking, and I was trying to remember my first moments of seeing my mum drunk in that. And I realised I was about 8 years old. So I thought it all come a lot earlier than that, because my brother and my older brother and my sister, they left home earlier because of stuff that happened. But obviously I was too young to remember that stuff. But my dad, my dad was never around, so I better say about that. So dad was never around. He was always in the pubs with his mates. He'd go to work, go straight to the pub after, and I've got no really early memories of my dad. He was never there, and he left. My mum got in a relationship with a different fella when I was about 6 years old, and obviously I can briefly remember that, but I can't remember deeply all that stuff. But my oldest sister, because my mum was obviously drinking, but it never affected me because I can't remember it. But my oldest sister left home, and she went to live with my nan, and this must have been obviously before I was 8 or 9. And then my brother left as well because he didn't get on with my mum's partner. But I don't want to go into too much detail about their lives, but they left. I want to try and keep it what I can remember, and they left anyway, and I've got not much memory of that though. So I'm, like I said, try and keep it to my memories. And so yeah, I can't really remember much of my mum's drinking. I remember my dad actually coming in because my mum got with this new fella, and my dad broke in and beat the fuck out of her new fella basically, and we were young, and I remember that shit us up, but that wasn't really like, I don't know. I can't remember seeing anyone drunk around that time. It was just my dad coming in and kicking off and beating the fuck out of my mum's new fella, But I went back to the first time that I could actually remember my mum being drunk, and the first time that I was actually scared around alcohol, and it was the millennium. So I would have been 9 years old, and I remember we were going out. I remember seeing the fireworks and stuff, and we went back to this house party. And my mum and her new fella, we was at this house party, and it all kicked off basically. And this bloke, he walked past me with this fucking knife, and I was only about 9 years old, and I shit myself basically, and my mum ended up bottling him, and it all went right. Actually, this was the time that my brother left home, actually, because it was around this New Year's. Yeah, that's right. So it was around this time my brother left home, so a big fight kicked off. I don't think my brother was there, and the police got called and everything anyway. And that's the first real time that I was scared, you know. And I always, like I said, I put it to my kids' ages now, and I know my lad's 9 now, and so I was his age, and I always try and compare my life with like how old I was in them moments. So I would have been 9 years old when this happened, and that's what I can really remember, the first time being really scared, seeing a fight breaking out, and seeing the police be there, and that's around the time when my eldest brother left, like, so he just left me and my little sister, and we were always so close, and we are to this day now. So this is where the chaos basically happened. So we're looking at 2000, and I would have turned 10 that year in the November, and from then to about, so it would have been about 18 months of chaos basically, where fights just kept happening. I kept witnessing my mum get beat up by her new partner. He was doing terrible things, beating her up. My brother had left, my sister had left. It was just me and my little sister. We moved house, and it was just a chaos period for about 18 months. And I remember now, I got caught. We moved house, and I must have been 9, and I got caught smoking in the garages. I remember stealing my mum's fags. I remember stealing her baccy, and this is where I think my addictive personality come from, because I was hanging around with older people, and I remember stealing some baccy out of my mum's pouch and sneakily rolling a fag. Used to stand outside the bedroom window smoking this fag, and I used to get the rush off it, and I was like, oh, that's nice. But I used to love being sneaky and hiding it, hiding the backy, hiding smoking, but seeing if no one could catch me and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's where all this addictive personality come from, like, you know. Obviously life was chaos, and I shouldn't have been smoking fags at that age, do you know what I mean? It was mental, like, that I was even smoking the fags. I look at my son now and think, fucking hell, I wouldn't even let him go to the shop, like, let alone smoking a fag. So obviously I was able to do those things, which wasn't right. But I remember getting caught smoking by my mum's partner. I was in the garages around the back, so we lived on a council estate, and we were smoking some fags out. We were smoking butts. I think we all collected butts, and we were smoking fags. And he caught us in the garages smoking. I remember when they had a right go at me. And then it sort of went from them basically. So around this time anyway, so it was about 2002. I remember coming home from school the one day, me and my little sister, and we had the police was there at our house, and I was like, "What's going on?" And they were like, "Oh, we're taking you to care, basically." I mean, it wasn't probably in those words, but as I can remember, it was just basically we got took into care. Like, and I remember them taking us away, and my mum sat on the tumble dryer crying her eyes out. Basically, she wasn't allowed to have this fella around. And when we was at school, she'd had him in, and broke the order, so they said that me and my sister wasn't safe because of all the domestic violence that was going on, and they took us into care. I remember it, man. It was fucking horrible. One of the worst things in my life, like, basically. And yeah, it was bad. But yeah, so we got took into care, and I hated it, and I used to play up. I used to be a little shit for our foster carer. I'd always be smashing the house up, always trying to escape and stuff. In my school, like, I was reading the school reports of when I was in year 4 and 5 the other day, and it's mental, like, how I was. All the signs of a kid with ADHD, basically. But them days it wasn't really diagnosed really as much as it is now. But it really affected me basically. And so my mum went into rehab. Funny enough, she went into rehab in the same town that I live in now, in a dry house. So my mum went into rehab anyway to get better and stuff, because she was an alcoholic. And she went into rehab, and I I couldn't even think of it, to be honest with you. And there was me at the age of 9 years old running 8 miles from Ombersley to Worcester because I just wanted to get to my nan's house. I just wanted to get away. I didn't want to be with this woman anymore, and I just ran. And I remember running down the road, and when a car come past, I'd put my hand to my ear, pretending that I was on the phone, thinking that if they see me on the phone, they wouldn't pull up and kidnap me because I was on the phone to someone, like the police or something. It was crazy, and I just ran, and I just kept running, man. And it was a long old stint, and I got just round the corner from my nan's house, and police picked me up. I couldn't believe it. But I was like, no, I'm not going back there. I'm not going back there. And I just wanted to go to my nan's. I was like, I want to go to my nan's. My granddad come round, and he said, look, you can stay with us tonight. And like, thankfully, it all went through the courts, and my nan actually got custody of us in the end. And me and my little sister went to live with my nan and granddad. And that was a good time of life. Like, my dad, he didn't want to know. I read the papers the other week, man, about like where he didn't even turn up at court and stuff. He'd turn up when he wanted to, and he said, look, nah, they're better off going to live with their nan. Like, he didn't want to know. My dad was never about, like, you know. So yeah, we went to live with my nan, and we met my eldest brother and sister again. And I remember seeing my brother, and he looked massive, like. But looking back now, it wasn't even a long time. It was only probably a couple of years that we hadn't seen each other. But I suppose you grow quite quick, don't you, when you're a teenager and that. And that was nice. My nan really calmed me down, you know. She fucking clothed us well, because we was a fucking nightmare at school and that. And my nan fed us, clothed us, and basically just turned us to like normal kids, what normal kids were meant to be, living a happy life. And we were reunited with all the rest of our family and that. And it was a special moment. Like, my nan saved her life, really. And whilst we was in there, my mum was in rehab, working while getting better. And it's mad because I look back now and I think, I didn't understand addiction then. Obviously, I was only 10 years old, 9, 10. In like, even till now, like, I only started working strongly on addiction to understand it. And like, it was mad because I remember when my mum come out of rehab in Weston, we moved up into Weston to live with her. Like, so my nan did all of that for us, but my mum gained custody back of us, and we went back to live with my mum. But she obviously didn't want to come back to Worcester because it's bad memories and everything like that. But then I didn't understand that, but now I totally do understand it because I've done it myself. And we moved to Weston, and I started up in year 7 in Weston. And that was scary, like, do you know what I mean? Being a kid who's always known, being a bit of the class, like, I had my group of friends, like, and so to be pulled away from all my friends to start a brand new high school, it's scary enough starting high school, but starting in year 7 in a different city, a different town, a different place was even more scary, like. So I started up in year 7 in a different city, and straight away I'd met the wrong crowd. And this is what I mean by, like, where we can blame our childhoods, but my sister was always so quiet and chill. And I've started year 7 in a new city, in a new place where I don't know no one, and I've met up with a crowd who was smoking cannabis. And I can't remember how I started smoking weed with them, to be honest with you, but all I can remember is going over the park, smoking weed, and then ended up putting a tent inside my shed in my mum's house, because I said, Mum, I'm smoking weed here. It was like simple as that. And her response was basically, she always had the mindset of, at least you're here with me and I know where you are, because otherwise I'll be on the fields doing it anyway, and I wouldn't be coming home till like 11 o'clock at night or whatever. So I set up a tent in my shed, literally put a tent inside my shed. I don't know the reasons why I did that, to be honest with you, but, and I remember we used to sit in there, me and my mates who I'd met, and just sitting there smoking cannabis all the time and playing on the computer and that. And like, even then I think, like, how did I even start smoking weed? But I remember I enjoyed being in that crowd of people where, like, obviously when I started year 7, I could have started my life there and started hanging around with the the kids who wanted to concentrate at school, the kids who wanted to do the good things. But I straight away found bad crowd and wanted to hang around with them. I wanted to be the one throwing rulers, throwing rubbers across the classroom at other people, being the one who was the class clown, to stand out, because that was the way I thought I could grab attention of others, you know. And I thought it was a good thing to do. But obviously it wasn't. So I know this is where my addictive like mindset was straight away from that offset. That's where I started being a little shit like, and I'd obviously already smoked fags, and I just used to enjoy being the little bastard. But anyway, I got kicked out of school in year 7, and wanted to go back to Worcester. I was like, Mum, I want to go back to my friends. And this is the thing, like, now I know addiction, I would never, I've got my mum to go back, like, but I did, and that caused her problems. But we went back to Worcester, and straight away, the funny thing is, we moved to the other side. So like, Worcester's a town where it's like, it's quite a biggish town, and you've got like the one side, you've got a council estates over that side, but we moved over the other side of the bridge where she obviously got a council house on a different estate. And I remember going back to year 8 to start with all the friends that I left primary school, to meet all them, and I sort of didn't have that connection with them, like, because they was all wanting to concentrate at school, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be the little shit who was smoking weed and that, like, and I couldn't find no one. And I ended up finding some friends in my new estate up in Ronkswood, and they wanted to do the stuff that I did, like smoke the weed and everything like that. So I was like, bam, I'm hanging around with these people now. I'm going to be hanging around with these. Them ones who I was at school with before, they want to be goody two-shoes, basically. That was my mindset then. And obviously now it was the best way of doing things. But in my day, when I was that age, I thought, yeah, you're goody two-shoes, lads. I don't want to hang around with you. I want to be with the naughty people. I want to be doing what the naughty people do. I want to be going out robbing bikes and stuff, which I started doing. I was robbing push bikes at a young age, like, so I could go and buy drugs. And it's just a crazy way of living. And then I just sort of like, so that's soon as I started year 8, because I started hanging around with people up in a different part, and they all went to a different high school. I was straight away being naughty at the school where I wanted to go to. So I've been banging onto my mum to get back to Worcester so I could go back to my old friends straight away. I don't like these people because they're too good for me, and I want to smoke weed. So I'm starting to be naughty at that school now because I want to go to another school already. And I didn't even want to go to school, to be honest with you. I just wanted to Skype and smoke cannabis. So I basically just never went to school. I used to Skype all the time. I met one of my mates. I remember meeting him in the DT block. Like, I was like, yeah, come on, let's fucking go. Like, let's leave school, man. We just left, and then I just lived my own life up in a new estate with new friends, and just lived that life of smoking weed. And I remember the first time I got arrested. Like, I was hanging around with my mates, and I knew I could break into my auntie's house. It was my nan's house, but she lived, her bikes were there, and I knew where the bikes was in the shed, and we needed some weed. And I broke into a shed. They were like £1,000 push bikes. We sold them for like a queue of weed, so we're talking 40 quid back in them days. And that's like the mindset I had. I was just going around, anything I could do. I was just doing anything, like selling people, older people than me, selling them like fake drugs so I can go and get my own and that. I was just a little bastard, to be honest with you. And this is where the mindset all started. Like, I used to just thrive on being in that crowd of bad people, when I was probably one of the worst ones in the crowd as well, by the way, because you can't say that you're following the bad crowd when, like, do you know what I mean? Because your mum would always say, oh, you're hanging around with the bad kids. But I was probably one of the worst ones, so their mums would probably say that about me. And that's what you've got to remember. Like, we can't blame anyone. We can only ever blame ourselves. You can't blame other people. Like, that's the life that I always wanted to live. And so yeah, I was just doing crazy stuff, like being arrested. Like, so this is all like before the age of 16, by the way. Like, my lad now, he's 13, and I couldn't even imagine him doing these things, you know what I mean? So I don't know if the world we live in today is different or what, but I was just doing stupid stuff and crazy stuff. By the age of 14, all this stuff was going on. And like, most of this time I wasn't even at school. Like, school wasn't even, I didn't even care about school. Like, I was just skiving all the time, just being a little bastard. And my mum's a recovering addict, by the way. My mum's not long come out of rehab, and I'm doing all this sort of stuff. And I'm not even giving a shit about her. And now I look at it now and I'm like, what a bastard I was. Like, you know what I mean? And people can say, like, yeah, but you had a bad upbringing. But no, we as addicts, we learn, like, we can't blame other people for our problems, like, do you know what I mean? And I know it's my childhood, but then why my little sister was never like that, do you know what I mean? My little sister wasn't like that. It was just me wanting to be a little shit, trying to hang around with the wrong people, or be in the crowd to be the ruler of that crowd, and that's how it was. And I remember, like, I wasn't really bothered about alcohol, but then I remember when we got to about year 9, so I don't know how that was, probably, what was that, 14, 15, year 9, year 10, and we'd all go down to we'd all go down the cricket ground and that, and we'd set up our tents and we'd buy the cheap bottles of cider and we'd do the spinners and that. And I remember I didn't really care about alcohol. All I really cared about was cannabis. I just loved my weed. I loved weed. Like, that's all I lived for. And I remember I'd gone over the other side of the bridge the one time, and we used to go to this fucking place. It was like nappy night, like for under 16s. It was a nightclub under 16s. And I remember we used to go in there and that. And I remember coming back up the house the one time in Ronkswood, in my mum had all the kids in. My mum relapsed by now, by the way. I haven't mentioned that, but my mum had relapsed. And I didn't blame her, to be honest with you. I made her come back to her. Well, I can't say I didn't blame her, but I brought her back to Worcester where she didn't want to go. And I've ended up being a little bastard at school. So, and all I'm doing is being chaos. Like, she like, it must have been so tough for her. Like, anyway, I come up and she's getting pissed with a load of the lads in the house, like, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, and this is where I started hanging around with more of these people as well. By now, all these other older lads again, smoking weed and doing what I did. I got kicked out of school by now, and I'd been put in a PRU that lasted about 2 minutes. I soon left that place. Like, I didn't. They was like, you can't do your GCSEs. We don't know enough about you. You're never in school. We don't say you can't do your GCSEs. So I was like, Mum, I ain't going to school no more. She went back to they took us back to a meeting. They was like, yeah, there's no point in him coming back. And I literally went canoeing for about 3 weeks, and that was it. I left school in year 10, I think. But no, I was just a little rebel, basically, like doing all the things that I shouldn't be doing all the things what is just so wrong. And you got to think, like, my brothers and sisters must have been thinking, he's just a chaotic mess. Like, really, I was just causing so much trouble. And then I started hanging around. Like, I met an older fella, actually. Like, I met an older bloke, and he basically sold drugs. Like, and we'd be able to go at his flat. He had his own gaff, like, 'cause he was a lot older than us. And so we'd have a place. Then we had shelter where we could smoke in that. And then we started doing pills and speed and stuff, like, do you know what I mean? And that's when all them drugs come into it. And that's when we used to stay up all night doing stupid stuff, singing songs and whatever else, writing shit. Just like, all, like, I look back now and I think, man, how was I even that young doing all of this stuff? I'm surprised I ain't dead, like, to be fair. It is crazy. But these moments, like, there was like, these are the moments that, like, they shape my mindset and my coping mechanisms. Because if I could get attention from all my mates, if I could be the class clown, if I could be the one who, like, everyone would come to my house and everyone would be like, oh, Sammy, and it'd be like, everyone likes me, so that's my way of getting attention, and that's my way of releasing that. That's how I would get my buzz, do you know what I mean? And that's how I lived my life when I was younger. Like, I'd do anything to be the Sam. Like, I'll be like, yes, everyone loves me, and that's how I wanted to be. And this is what I do. So I jump into anything. I'd do any drug. I'd do anything just to be like, I'm one of the boys. Like, and that's what I wanted to be. And that's how I lived my life. I didn't give a shit about careers. I didn't give a shit about work. I didn't give a shit about anything but my mates and smoking cannabis and just doing other drugs by now as well. Going to raves. We was going to raves and stuff like this. Was later on, and it was just chaotic, to be honest with you. And that's what I say to anyone who's living this life now. Like, why do you want to live that life? Yeah, you think it's good and you think it's going to get you places, but you know where it got me? It nearly put me into a grave early, man. In like, I was just doing stupid shit, following the crowd, trying to be the big I am, and it was just, it got me nowhere in life. And this is why I try telling people now, these kids these day and age, like, if you want to live that life, let me tell you, it ends you one place, and that's in prison. You will end up in prison, and you will end up on hospital beds, and you will end up with no friends in the end, because they all go other places, and it's just a sad, lonely place, because everyone grows up and people do their own things. They end up having their own families, and that's the reality. Like, we all grow up and we don't hang around with those friends forever, because we just lose connection. So what you do in those vital years, from the age of high school, basically, all those vital years, just knuckle down and listen. That's what I try saying to people. Just knuckle down and listen, man. And concentrate at school, man, because I used to think it was clever doing all this stuff. It ended me in one place, and I was nearly losing my life at a young age. But yeah, so I got to 18. For some reason, I always wanted to drive, and I was always like, I've got to drive. Another thing to probably be like, yeah, I'm one of the bulls. I've got to be the first to have a driving license, so everyone loves me. And that's what I used to be, thrive for that attention. And yeah, so I got my license, and I remember having my first panic attack, actually. So I was smoking a lot of weed, and we used to get motorbikes, and we'd be riding our motorbikes over the fields, like, and I'd be sucking on the petrol tanks and getting a buzz. Like, my mate would be like, what the fuck you doing? He'd boot the bottle out of my hand. Like, what are you doing, weirdo? And this is where I think my panic attacks and anxiety started, like, because when I had that first panic attack, man, it shook me up. And I don't think I ever lived my life the same again, to be honest with you. And how did I deal with that? Alcohol. Because I thought the only thing to get rid of, like I said, I wasn't really a drinker, but the only thing that would get rid of my anxiety and my panic attacks, even though it's a vicious circle, the alcohol would get rid of it. And that's when I took up the alcohol. I lost my driving licence within 6 months. I got my driving licence and lost it within 6 months, driving with no insurance, being a class clown, because that's all I was. I was just an idiot seeking for attention. And this is why I warn people, it's so important. Like, you think it's okay to do all this stuff. I never thought that I would ended up alcohol taking over my life, because it controlled me. And it was all started from this stuff, from being the person who wanted to be liked, being the person who wanted to be the main man, being the person who thrived off attention, thrived off being one of the lads. And what happened was, I ended up lonely, because all my mates grew up and had their own families, and that was me stuck on my own drinking, and it took over my life, because I try being in that crowd, but when we grow up and we all live our different lives, you end up lonely. And it takes over your life. And unfortunately for me, the mental health kicked in, and when the mental health kicked in, that was it. That day, I can remember the day now. I was playing on the computer. I had that first panic attack. I went down to my mum. I was like, Mum, what the fuck is wrong with me, man? I said, I can't even know where I am. My legs are shaking. I didn't know. I was stoned out my head. I thought, I was just like, what's going on? She was like, you're having a panic attack. And ever since that day, I've been riddled with anxiety. Obviously, I'm controlling it better now, but it fucked me up. It fucked my life up for the rest of my life up to now. Until now, I'm dealing with it, and that's why I spiraled into this mad addiction personality, because alcohol took away that anxiety, and so I'd drink alcohol. It would take away the pain. And yeah, they say obviously the next day you're drinking and it's just going to give you anxiety the next day, but then if you're drinking first thing in the morning, by 11 o'clock you're pissed again, and you ain't got that anxiety because you feel powerful again, and it's took away all of that pain. And that's what it does, and that's where the vicious circle starts, man. It's a scary life, man. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I warn people, like, don't take it for granted. Like, don't take it for granted. Starting off in those little circles, smoking those bongs, smoking those buckets, smoking those spliffs, and then when you're on your own, when that panic attack happens and you can't deal with it in any other way, and then you'll start drinking on your own because you're bored, and all of a sudden you're stuck in that rut and you can't get out. And it's scary, man. Fucking scary, like, you know. And that's why these kids these days are doing ketamine and all this stuff, the things that like really damaging their bodies, man. You gotta be so careful. But I'm going to shoot off onto this one now, because I just wanted to basically wrap up on this one really, and say about like how like it doesn't matter about how our upbringings obviously have a say so, but I was in treatment with very wealthy people who had amazing upbringings, by the way, and they just have that addictive personality. And I think no matter my childhood, I would have always been that kid who, well, I might not have been, but I always thrived for attention. I always thrived to be one of the well-known people. I wanted to be one who's got the name. I wanted to be the one who, and when I first tried that fag, I remember having such a rush off it, hiding, trying to smoke it out my bedroom window and getting a buzz off trying to smoke it without no one catching me. And these are the things where, like, I noticed where, and this is why what I did in treatment, where I'm digging up my past. It's so important for people to do it, because when I was hiding and when I didn't know about none of this stuff, when I didn't know about any of this stuff while I was drinking, when I spent all these years in adulthood drinking and I didn't know how to cope with it, it was like, well, what? I just thought that was my life. Like, I didn't fucking know any different. I just thought, right, all I can do is drink alcohol and that's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And then when I went into therapy and I dug up the reasons why I did this, why did I want to always be the one who the big I am? Why did I always want to be the one who was the class clown? Why did I always want to be part of the lads who were drinking and smoking? And it's like why, like, all of that trauma and all of that all like coming to a, because obviously doing those things at a young age causing me to get arrested and then that puts stress on yourself. And then that's like all the class of trauma, by the way, because I'm getting locked up in police stations at a young age, and then I'm getting like chased by police. I'm getting chased by other people, older people, by the way. If I've robbed somebody with my mates, we've robbed somebody, sold them dodgy drugs or something, and they're chasing us. And like all this stuff just causes trauma because you're scared and you're hiding from people all the time. You're always looking over your shoulder, and it's just like, what a life to live, man. And obviously from the age of 22, man, it got even worse. Like, I was doing this, but I wanted to cover this in because like what they make you do in treatment is like dig up from like the age of 0 to 16, and they call those the years that aren't really our fault, and then 16 plus is our fault. But I'd say a lot of the stuff from the age of 12 to 16 were my fault as well, because I didn't listen to no one. My mum couldn't tell me what to do. I did what I wanted to do. And it's so bad. Like, I look back, it's so bad. I caused so much stress on my mum, and she was a recovering alcoholic, by the way. My dad, by the way, has not been around for all this time. It's always been my mum. My mum's done everything for me, and I just treated her like shit. Like, all of this stuff that's going on, by the way, I haven't even mentioned my dad, because my dad's never been there. My dad's never come and like tried to help my mum at all. Like, it's bad, man. His dad was never there, and I know I lost him this year in that, but I've got to say, like, he was never there. He's never done nothing for me in my life. My mum did everything, and yes, she's been through the ringer. Yes, she's made bad mistakes, but she's always tried her hardest to like better herself, to do things right for us, you know what I mean? And she's always been there. She's always been the one there. When I had my panic attacks, she was the one who was there to comfort me and stuff, you know? And all I was doing is causing her stress. And like, it's like me now going to be with my kids and them causing me all this stress, and I'm a recovering addict, and it will be tough to deal with. It'd be so tough to deal with. And I was just a little bastard all the time. So yeah, yeah, man, it's deadly, man. So you need to really dig up your past, people. Like, that's what I say to people. I want to shout out to people, man. So important to look at, if you're struggling with drink, if you're struggling with drugs, if you're struggling with anything, even if you haven't had a bad past, just dig into the roots to why you keep on drinking, why do you keep on doing it, man? And you might get some answers, like, because that's what you got to do. You got to work on it, dig deep and see why you keep drinking, why do you keep using that as a coping mechanism, because like I said, it does help you at a time, but in the long run it will kill you. And that's what I thought I'd just keep drinking for the rest of my life because I can deal with it this way. But then my body couldn't handle it. My body gave up. My body was like, I can't take this no more. At the end of the day, I've got to bail. I've got to give in. And when your body's telling you it can't take no more, you've got no other way of coping. You've got no choice but to deal with it in a way of, it's either death or deal with it by going to treatment or working with therapy. Do you know what I mean? There's no other way of dealing with it. It's either kill yourself by drinking or dig up the reasons why you do it. And that's what I've learned, man. And that's what I try sharing to people. There is a way out, man. There is a way out. I'm going to leave it there, and I'll come back in. I'll try and get somebody else on for the next one, but I might share a little bit about my adult life and like being to prison and the reasons why I went to prison and that. I'll probably share one on that first, but I don't want to keep banging on for too long, and it's been long enough now probably. But yeah, stay safe, people. Stay strong. Rise up, recover, and link me on TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram. Rise and recover. Stay safe.